This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram, what have you got for us tonight?
All right, so let's talk about what you can buy right now in terms of a gaming laptop. So this is a great time. I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago. This is actually a fantastic time to buy a PC in terms of price and availability. Now, we do know that this fall we're likely going to see some new chips, both new CPUs and new graphics cards. And so if you want if you're a person who wants to live on the bleeding edge, okay, maybe wait 2-3 months because there's probably going to be some new CPUs and GPUs coming out. But if you do not have to live on the bleeding edge and you want a good value for your money, now is a fantastic time because all of the stock problems seem to be gone when it comes to graphics cards and CPUs. In fact, there is a glut, and with new parts about to come out, companies cannot wait to get rid of them. So things are going on sale. I mean, there may be even bigger sales around Black Friday, who knows? But right now, you can get a really solid, really good gaming laptop for less than $1,500. So what should we expect for under $1,500? First of all, we'll start with the most important feature for a gaming laptop in determining performance, and that's the graphics chip. Period. Like, it's not the CPU. CPU doesn't matter that much for especially when you're doing gaming at 1080p resolution. I'm not to say it doesn't matter, but what matters the most by far is the quality of the graphics card you're getting. And so for under $1,500, your best graphics card is going to be either an NVIDIA RTX 3070 if you find a laptop on sale for the 3070. Now, normally that's an extreme sale. Normally, you're in this price range. You're talking about a 3060 card or a 3050 Ti, but the higher up that rung you can go, the better. Or if it's an AMD system, one with a Radeon 6800M, that is actually going to be a little better than a 3060 in terms of frame rates. Now, you should expect to be able to play on a sub $1,500, like a laptop that's between, say, $1,200 and $1,500. You should be able to play 1080 games at 1080p resolution and high or ultra high settings in the, let's say, 40 to 70 FPS range. If it is a lower end game or you lower the settings, you could go up the ladder in terms of frame rates. If you lower the resolution, you could go up the ladder in terms of frame rates. And if you turn on ray tracing, then you will see lower frame rates, but with the higher end cards there, you still will probably be able to play it at maybe in the 30, 40, 50 FPS range. So, and by the way, for folks who are up on the gamer lingo, FPS, frames per second, you really don't want to go below 30 frames per second because when you're watching a movie, you're mostly watching at, what is a standard movie frame rate, 24 or 29? Some are 29.
29.9 is kind of the standard production. 24 and 48 are the two kind of alternate. 24 is your I think your film rate. $29.9 is your digital video rate, and $48 is what Peter Jackson, I think, was using for a couple of movies that required special projectors and were really weird to watch.
Yes, soap opera effect. So
Yeah, exactly.
they call it, right? Um, but anyway, not to get into that tangent. So you want 30 FPS for I would consider a game barely playable or not playable if it's below 30 FPS. Uh, Getting closer to 60 FPS is better, and hardcore gamers, they like to get closer to 100 or over 100 FPS. Those who do shooting games, they play Call of Duty, things like that, and especially competitively, Fortnite, something like that. The higher the frame rate, the better their aim. So that matters a lot. Now, all of these gaming laptops in this price range are going to have 1920 by 1080, otherwise known as 1080p screens. You're not going to get a 2K screen, and fortunately, you're not going to get a 720p screen. And the screens are all going to be high refresh rate, which means they're all going to be either 120, 144, or 165 hertz. There may be a couple that are above 165 hertz, although your graphics card probably can't deliver enough frames for that to matter. So the again, forgive me if I'm telling folks what they already know, but the hertz is the amount of refreshes the screen does per second. And with modern technology, the graphics card, whether it's AMD or NVIDIA, tries to use variable adaptive sync. So it will say, oh, screen can show 165 hertz, means the screen can actually show 165 frames per second. But if the graphics card is only delivering 60 frames a second, then let's make the screen operate at 60 hertz so that they're synchronized. Because if they're not synchronized, then you have tearing and ghosting. So uh, similarly, if for some reason your graphics card was trying to deliver 200 frames per second and your screen could only do 100, it would say, graphics card, sorry, you've got to max out at 144 frames so that we don't exceed the speed of the screen. So anyway, for what you are doing with these, the 165 hertz display is going to be probably more speed the graphics card can provide for the games that you're going to play. So, aside from the screen and the graphics card, you can expect to get a 500 gigabyte to, maybe if you're lucky and you find a sale, 1 terabyte SSD, and you're going to get 16 gigabytes of RAM. If you spend less than $1,000, then you can expect that you'll probably be looking at more systems that have 8 gigabytes of RAM and a measly like 256 gigabyte SSD. Neither of those is very good to work with, especially the 256 gig SSD, considering that a modern game can take 50, 100, or 150 gigabytes all by itself. Fortunately, most of these laptops are upgradable.
Call of Duty Warzone has an install size, I think, currently of like 128 gig.
Right. So right. So like, I guess if you had Windows 11, they all come with, and and the new Call of Duty had nothing else installed, and no other data, no pictures, no documents, then I guess you might make it. You might 90% of your drive eaten up. Um, but 256 gig is just really unacceptably low amount. So for especially for if you're gaming. So the good news is most of these laptops are upgradable, and it costs a lot less to buy an SSD on the aftermarket than it does to buy a more expensive laptop. So that's something to keep in mind. One can get a very capable 1 terabyte SSD for about $80 these days, $80 to $85, sometimes less. So that's an upgrade option for you. You can also getting a 16 gigs of RAM to replace your 8 gig. If let's say they give you an 8 gig chip, so you have to yank it out and put two 8 gig matching chips or something. You can get a pair of SODIMMs for $50 to $75. So upgrading is not out of reach at all if you get lower specs. But so let's take a really quick look at a couple of things that are available right this minute that are within these price ranges. So over here, I have now this is a sale this week or clearance. So you always see things on sale and clearance, though. It just depends what each week. So this is a great deal right here because you're getting a Ryzen 9, which is it's perfectly fine to get either an AMD or an Intel processor because the processor is much less important than the other things like the graphics card. You're getting a 3070, you're getting a 1 terabyte SSD, which is a nice size, and 16 gigs of RAM. And oh wow, something I said you probably can't get in this price range, a QHD or otherwise known as a 2K screen for $1479. That's not very common though. So let's look at what is a little more common. So here, this isn't under 1,000. This is one of the best under $1,000 deals here. The Acer Nitro 5 get for $849 or not if it's not on sale $999. You get a Core i5, an RTX 3050 Ti, which is I wouldn't turn ray tracing on with it, but it probably give you a good 30 to 50 frames per second at high settings, and a 512 gig SSD for $849. Another really good deal here is the Asus. Again, I guess there's some really good deals on Asus laptops in this price range. Is the Asus ROG Strix G15 Advantage Edition. Actually, this is also 2K screen. You get it with Ryzen 9 5980HX, which is a good processor, and the 6800M, which is actually, our test was about 15 to 20 frames per second faster than a 3060. So that's a really good deal here. Here's another one here where you see a 3070 and a Intel Core i7 and 512 gigabyte SSD for $1399. So that's what you can get if you're willing if you can spend under $1,500. Now, what are you missing out on? Well, you're missing out on some of the kind of nice design and creature comforts you get with some more expensive things. Like you notice there's no Alienware on this that I mentioned. You really will be hard pressed to find like an Alienware, which premier design, or Razer laptop, which is kind of premier design in this price range. But if what you're looking for is performance, is solid performance, then you will get it. The keyboard will be okay, the design will be okay, but it may or may not be the best keyboard or the most beautiful design that you could get on a gaming laptop with these specs.
Gotcha. Well, those sound like some pretty impressive PCs, honestly, especially in that price range. Two of them with 2K screens. That was a surprise for me.
Yeah, and 3070. So you actually with a 3070, you could take a stab at playing in 2K. I mean, you might not get fantastic frame rates, but you probably get in the 40 to 50 FPS range, maybe. So yeah, I mean, I think one thing to look for when you read reviews of these, which we have of many of those, is what is the color and brightness like on the screens, because while they're all probably usually in the same resolution and relative refresh rate, relatively similar refresh rates, I'm looking for ones that come out a little brighter, a little more colorful, is a plus. So, um, yeah, we're going to have a list of our favorite sub $1,500 laptops up in the next day or two um, on tomshardware.com. So come check it out, and we're continue to test, get in and test some other sub 1,500 and sub $1,000 gaming laptops, so folks can really take advantage and get uh, something that is good and that they can really enjoy. Uh, my top piece of advice though is it doesn't have to be the latest.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be the latest model. It doesn't have a lot of systems you could save a few bucks by getting it with last year's CPU, like an 11th gen core or a Ryzen 5,000 instead of 6,000 series processor.
Sure.
Like it doesn't matter very much. Like what the graphics card matters, but even getting last year's graphics card, if it is a good graphics card, then it will serve you well for years. You do not always need, if you are on any kind of a budget, and I think we all are, um, you do not have to have the latest generation to
Mm-hmm.
have a great experience that will last you a very long time.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it comes down to what your intentions are, right? Because you think about um, esports, which is we've been involved in that with Strike, with esports. You tend to keep your resolution at 1080. You tend to keep your render mode at normal or high, because the frame rate's the most important thing. And so a lot of people are using 2060s in that category because you can easily get it done for inexpensive and get what you need on the specs. So yeah, you don't necessarily always have to have the latest and greatest to have
Yeah,
the best performance depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish.
and that's what the 144 hertz is for, really. Like people who are just playing to
Mm-hmm.
play, who aren't trying to be sort of play esports type titles, something like an Apex Legend or Legends or something like that. Um, they are probably going to be happy playing at 60, 70 FPS.
Mm-hmm.
But for folks who are being playing competitively, uh, having 144 hertz or two, or if they can go even up the scale higher to like 300 hertz, they are going to have a better chance to hit a target in a game. Uh, I had a very, this is somewhat of an aside from the issue of buying a gaming laptop specifically, or it's certainly not a sub $1,500 one. But I had a meeting with NVIDIA a few weeks ago, and they want to talk to us about latency, how and how important it is to do things that some of their technologies are that reduce latency. And one thing I really never thought about, perhaps you've thought about it, but I certainly haven't, is that what you see on your screen is you're looking into the past, right? Like the video card and the computer are actually like a certain number of milliseconds ahead of what you're seeing. So if you saw a character run in front of you, it might actually be past you in the computer's mind by
Yep.
the time you see it. It's almost
Yep.
like staring into outer space where you see light from a distant star that's traveled, that is showing you something going to happen a
And
million years ago.
I would say, and could have been gone for thousands or millions of years.
Right. It could be gone now, but we don't know because what we're seeing is still there. So,
Right.
like, that's so in the world of computers, that time difference might be, you know, 70 milliseconds, but that's a valuable 70 milliseconds.
Yeah.
And like using a technology that lowers the latency down to like 30 milliseconds might be the difference between shooting and hitting your shot on a fast moving object and
Mm-hmm.
not and shooting at what you think is in front of you but is already. Um, that's why having the high refresh rate matters, and having things low latency matter. There's some technologies in the graphics and in the gaming that are lowering latency, but also if you're using peripherals, uh, that matters too. Like you get you get a mouse with a high polling rate, you get a keyboard with a high polling rate, because you know you want to make sure that your keystroke, that your click gets processed and sets the computer really fast.
100%. And also, one thing that people don't tend to look at the spec on is the monitor's delay. The ones I've got a couple at strike 1 and 3 millisecond delays on the monitors, when a consumer monitor tends to be 30 plus. That is a significant difference in latency.
Yeah.
Introduced entirely by the monitor. And then if you're doing things like streaming, if you've got like a dual PC setup and you're pushing from one to the other, you might have a splitter or something involved, and that might be adding latency as well.
Yeah, so there's so much opportunity for something to slow you down, and it might be, barely perceptible to, that amount of time might be very hard to perceive, but
right.
It matters. And they showed me in some demos that, like, hey, look, we've done something to lower the latency. Here's a character that like was running across the screen past like an open door. Can you hit him? And like without the latency improvement, we could not. Matt and I could not hit the target. Once they put on the improved latency, we hit the target. So
yeah, that's pretty impressive. I look forward to seeing and hearing more about that, since we dived in full feet first into this.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Yep. We will have more about that. We do test latency, but we're working on some new tests for that too.
Cool. Well, Avram, as always, I appreciate it. That was an extra interesting topic for me this evening, and I know a lot of our viewers have had questions about gaming stuff. They respond to the laptop topics all the time, so definitely appreciate that. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about next time. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Piltch Point with Avram Piltch. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and of course hit the notification bell, since subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. And if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you don't want to follow us on YouTube, that's okay. There's a lot of other ways that you can follow our content. You can find all of that by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.